Sometimes good is good enough. Hey y'all, and welcome to Stivers Homestead. I'm Zach, and today I've got a lot of things I want to show you all, a lot of information to give you that I think will be really good. But I kind of wanted to just catch up. It's been a really long spring, and I think we can all agree with that, with bad weather, with wind, rain, fluctuating temperatures. It's been a little challenging for a gardener. But it's also just kind of been challenging for life, right? We've had a lot of people that have had a lot of disasters happen, a lot of different things to overcome. But for us, it's been a little chaotic, but also really, really good. So what I'm getting at before we get into over here, you've seen a lot of me on your videos this past couple weeks. And that is not because there's any issues with Jen and the kids. They have just been super busy. And I've been doing it with them too, but there's been a lot of day stuff. So the kids are homeschooled. And when your kids are homeschooled, that gives a lack of clubs and stuff to be able to do. However, we have finally found something that has been really great for the kids. So they have been really, really busy learning how to cook with Mama, which we've got some pictures of that. Going to pool parties, going to do art, learning how to garden even more, teaching me a few things. And so they have just been really occupied throughout their summer, mingling with others, getting to do things with others. And that's kind of what they've been doing. So it's not any issues that are coming there because we had some questions that were coming up. Just wanted to let you know we're all having a blast this summer, and we're ignoring the weather and the spring that's coming and embracing the summer as much as we can. And while they've been doing some day stuff, I've been out here in the garden trying to get the weeds out, trying to get more things planted. And I think we are finally at a spot to where we're almost basically ready to call it for our summer planting. However, stay tuned here in the near future on this video for some really good tidbits if you still need to plant something and what you can. But before we dive too deep, because I don't want you all to miss this, Father's Day is coming up this Sunday, and it is time to celebrate fathers. I know it's a very exciting time for a lot of people. Dads like to be spoiled sometimes too. So we have opened up our 20% sale at our store. So it's 20% off, $20 or more. You get free shipping and the 20% off if you spend $50. And that is at thestivershomestead.com. So a lot of people ask, like, well, what would a dad want in there? So there's a lot of different stuff that you can get. You can keep it to the basics just with immune boosting because dads do not like getting sick. It feels like we can't afford a day off to be sick. So it's stuff like elderberry tincture or crud be gone tincture. You could do that. Or if your dads are anything like me, they get very dry, cracked skin. So calendula salve is a beautiful thing to get for them to help moisturize the skin. And maybe they're trying to cut down on a little bit of that caffeine. You could get them a loose leaf tea for them to try. We have tea like bourbon barrel tea that I really enjoy because I'm a guy too. And even though the store is by the mastermind of my wife, I do like to throw some of the things in there that would be beneficial for guys. So again, all that's at thestivershomestead.com, and that'll run through Father's Day. All right, who's ready to get in this garden? So the first thing I want to talk to you about are tomatoes. And these are tomato plants that we have tied up against this cattle panel that we put up. But there are so many different ways to do this. So we've been trimming them up, and then I've got them all tied up, and I want to show you that technique. However, the few techniques that you can do it is you can just let them bush. You can let all the suckers go. You can try to put a cage around them and just let them, basically don't touch them. Now, that is perfectly fine to do. That is the way we did it last year. We like that way. But the only problem is it does seem for us that they get a little bit more disease because you have more plants laying on the ground. And when that rain splatter puts that dirt on there, they can start getting blight. And we were just having issues with that. Also, a reason that you might not want to go that route, if you're in a very humid environment, if you don't have room for them to breathe on the bottom and throughout how they're bushing out, that can also make them wilt and get some disease and die. So trimming them sometimes does help, especially in the high humidity places. Another thing to think about is if you have a determinate or indeterminate tomato. And basically what that means, if it's a determinate tomato, that means there's a determined amount of tomatoes that tomato plant's gonna grow. So if you start trimming and cutting, you're cutting down how many tomatoes you're gonna get off that plant. If you have an indeterminate tomato, that means infinity. It can grow as many tomatoes as long as that plant stays healthy. It's gonna keep growing tomatoes for you and keep getting bigger. So just Google whatever type tomato variety that you have, and you'll be able to determine if yours is indeterminate or determinate. All right, so let's get to the nitty gritty. So as you can see here, here's my stem. I make sure to cut up and keep anything off that will be laying on the ground. So that's the first thing that we do. The second thing is, this is your main stem, right? And you can see how that one goes up. You can keep your tomato plant to just one stem if you want. However, if you're like me, them suckers get away from you before you can get back out here and tie, like this guy and this guy. And then there's another one right there. So in that situation, you have something to decide. How many stems do I want this tomato plant to have? This one specifically, there was 3 really healthy ones, and really it was because we have some tomatoes that are starting to pop on. So I went 3 stems. So you got this one right here, 1, and I kind of pulled it to the side to grow this way. You have this one right here, which is our main stem. So I have it kind of in the middle. And then we have a 3rd one off this one tomato plant that's going off this way, and I tied up. All I like to do, I don't like to tie them together. I like to try and tie them separately, growing in different directions. That way they have room to breathe and they're not suffocating each other, basically, because they have a lot of neighbors and you don't want them to get too full. The second thing is what you're tying them with. You want to make sure that you're tying your tomato plants with something that is stretchable. Don't care what it is. You know, try to find something that doesn't have a bunch of chemicals on it, because that could end up hurting your tomato plant. But if you go to Amazon or wherever, or Hoss, they're going to have some kind of tape. They're going to call it like a tomato tape or tomato tie. And that's what you want to get. I'll have ours linked down below in our Amazon thing, whatever they call that. If you want to get that one specifically, just make sure it's something that is able to stretch. If you get something that's not able to stretch and you tie that too tight against your tomato plant, it's going to start cutting into your tomato plant instead of allowing that tomato plant to grow. So make sure to keep that in mind when you're tying up your tomatoes. Okay, let's move over to bed number 2. So over here we have a Mexican sunflower growing, we got squash, and we got zucchini, and we got pole beans. And I know it looks rough. This is one of the next beds to get onto weeding. We'll explain why this hasn't been taken care of in just a moment. So as you can see there, we got a little baby squash growing. This might actually be the zucchini. I don't know. There's 3 squash and 3 zucchini in there. We don't know. We'll see. I'm pretty sure these 3 are squash and those 3 are zucchini, but who knows? Zucchini and squash, they're very easy to grow. They would almost grow in concrete, I think, if you would let them. But there's one thing that I really wanted to tell you about that you might not know, or if you've done this before, you've definitely experienced it. And really with your tomatoes too. Your first fruit, so the first ones that are growing on there, do not be surprised if they get blossom end rot. So blossom end rot is when the bottom of whatever fruit you have starts turning black. And you're like, what's going on here? It's rotting out. Why is that happening? Well, I've known the reason. I'm not going to get into too much detail because I'm telling you just more about what to experience and what to do rather than the scientific why. Sure, somebody down in the comments has explained why it happens. But the reason I said on your first fruit, don't be surprised if they get that blossom end rot, because it seems like a way of passage. It seems like the first fruit always gets it. Just pick it off, throw it down. And the biggest thing that I see gardeners do is then they start panicking. And what I mean by panicking is you think something's seriously wrong. It's not. Don't start throwing a bunch of different fertilizers on it. Don't be adding Epsom salts to try to get the minerals in there. Calm down. Let's just understand that it seems like the first fruits get blossom end rot and the rest will be fine. Because if you start doing too much, then you could be impacting that plant and the future fruit that was going to be okay anyways. So just expect it. Might first little batch have some blossom end rot. I'm just going to pick them off and I'm not going to freak out as long as that plant looks good and healthy. Next up, pole beans. These are Kentucky's what is it called? Kentucky pole beans, Kentucky blue pole beans. I don't know. It's Kentucky's pole bean, whatever it's called. I'm not good with variety names. Y'all know that. But they are all starting to attach really good. Like this one's already up here. So from down here all the way to here. And they're going to focus on getting some growth onto them. And it actually works a lot like okra. And this is going to happen with any plant that's growing up. What basically is happening is they're going to be focusing on growth. And down near the bottom of the base is where you're going to start getting some of that first fruit. So they're going to start at the bottom, work their way up. So just kind of pay attention to that. You can pick as the bottom goes and then just keep going. Or you can wait till everything's ready and just start picking it off. Over here, we got our cucumbers. These are both national pickling cucumbers, and we do have them on both sides. Remember, like I said, these won't grow as fast and as wild as the pole beans, so they won't get all the way and over. So it's okay to plant on both sides, but they are looking great. We're going to be getting some fruit soon, and look at there. Speaking of fruit, there's our first cucumber. We grow quite a bit of cucumbers. Pickles are pretty popular in our house. Basically, everybody likes them. And we usually ferment them. We like doing fermenting just for good gut health. Jen and I are very focused on continuously having good gut health, and putting fermented food is a great way to do that. If you're not into that, you can easily pickle these things. You can do refrigerator pickles where it doesn't even require canning. but they just won't last as long. So we love them. We usually grow a lot of them, and these bad boys have just been our favorite. However, if you're not focused on the pickle side of things, then my favorite cucumber is the Be It Alpha cucumber. And I love it because it's silky smooth. There's no pricklies. It's a very flavorful cucumber, but the biggest thing is it's open pollinated, which means that it does not need a bee to pollinate. I think that's so cool with some of these plants that do that. That means you can grow them indoors. You can grow them in greenhouses. You can grow them in places where bees aren't at. And so it's just a really great cucumber if you want something more for just slicing salads, eating on the side. And this open part of the beds, so that one's broken. I'm gonna have to really do some maintenance here soon, like next year or something. Anyways, and all of this is flowers. So I just direct sowed a bunch of zinnias, a bunch of sunflowers, and that'll all pop up in here, helping with pollinators. Right here at this one, we have honeydew and cantaloupe that are growing. They're a little bit slower. They take a little bit longer to mature, but they'll be attaching to this cattle panel very soon. If you're gonna put any kind of melons or anything like that on a cattle panel, or if you're growing them up, just make sure to do two things. One, don't put a rattlesnake watermelon on a cattle panel. That fruit gets really big and really heavy, and so you're gonna have to do a lot of work in supporting it. Do things like a sugar baby watermelon that still gets big, but you have ways to support it. So that brings me to the second point. If you're going to grow vertical with melons or any kind of things like that, have some kind of support system. You know, there's the hilarious things that we see online where they use women's bras to support the melon so it doesn't pull down on the plant and break off. Pantyhose work really well because that's breathable, and you can do that. But just make sure you have a plan to give a little support to those melons, because they will definitely break the stem and fall and break open, and then it's like, man, that was a bummer. So just be ready for something like that. And the new news, I finally got our pumpkin patch planted, finally. So y'all knew I was working on this bed for a while, and these are just all orange jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. Down at the bottom, I think I did throw in a couple white ones, but they are officially planted. They don't look great because they stayed in their containers way too long, got way too much water, but things like you can see how some of them are starting to look pretty good and recover. So when it comes to the big garden, we're calling it there. And it's like Jen and I was talking, you know, we're being very active with the kids. We're doing a lot of stuff with them. We don't need that bed. We don't need the half of that bed. We don't need that other bed that's down there. This is what we want to grow, and this is the amount that we want to grow it for. We cut things out like okra. You know, we didn't grow that this year because we didn't need to. So we're just trying to get the basics and the necessities in the big garden while allowing us to have time. So I'm not going to be clearing these out anymore. I will get some eventually because I don't want these roots to get so set. But my goal is to keep now the beds weeded. And now that I've got that pumpkin patch done, I can start getting back into these and really taking care of them. Also, now that I've got the tomatoes all tied up, because that's very time consuming, that gives me more time to just focus on weeding the gardens. And as kind of chaotic and I really love my tomato bed. My tomato bed's looking pretty awesome. But the other ones are looking a little rough. I will say, on the other hand, this kitchen garden is looking pretty fantastic. So I was finally able to get the weed eater in here and trim everything up so you can see the beds again. So just kind of running down the line here. These are our bush beans. So we got bush beans over here. We got pole beans over there. We got some bush beans over there too. However, bugs come quick around here. So we're going to be using this kitchen garden as the new area that the bugs don't know yet. So we know they're going to go over there, but then they don't know about this one just yet. So we're kind of doing a fail safe, having them in two different spots, making sure that we will get a harvest and get a good harvest at that. Behind the scenes, they get going and it gets Rusty going. Shoo, go on. You have a site. Go find another acre on the 12 acres to do something with. Okay, back to this. I have to do that so many times. It's crazy. They'll come over here. They'll be like, why are you here? And then they'll get going. Rusty gets barking. I'm like, all right, I got to stop this so the people can hear what I'm saying. All right. So speaking of bush beans, so we had the netting on them for a long time because for whatever reason, the cats would not leave this bed alone. So they kept getting here and digging all the plants out. So I put my little PVC hoops just in the ground, covered it up with the bug screener or whatever you want to call it, frost protector, until they got more established. And it seems like once they get more established, the animals leave it alone, which is whatever. I'll take it. I like it. And we actually got our first very little harvest of green beans yesterday, which was really cool. I always throw flowers in like any bed I can. So we got a calendula in here. It helps bring pollinators, and some of this stuff will also help keep bugs away. So I don't think calendula does that. However, it will help with the pollinators. Our dill's looking all pretty and getting real tall, getting those beautiful heads on them that you would see in like your ferments and stuff. And our cilantro, it's going to seed. Cilantro don't make sense to me. To be something that's so popular in a cuisine that is known for its extremely hot weather, Mexican cuisine, it bolts as soon as it gets hot. Make it make sense to me. How did this herb that doesn't like to grow in the hot, but also cannot handle frost, become such a top herb in tacos and Mexican food when it can't even really grow there? Strange, isn't it? While you're pondering on that, we'll move forward. So in this bed and in that bed, yesterday I came in and I pulled out all the broccoli that had bolted and cleaned out all the weeds, because we got some big plants for this one and this one. I did leave 2 cauliflowers. You can tell it's ate up, but the heads are still there. So I'm just trying to see if they can grow a little bit longer, but they might not. I did harvest the one good cauliflower that was in there, and we've got it cut up and in the fridge now. So we got one of them out of there. I don't hold too much on cauliflower, cabbage, and broccoli around here because the weather never seems to cooperate long enough if you're just strictly growing outside. Now, we put a raised bed in our greenhouse one year, actually the first year we built it. And I started all of that stuff in January and just had it growing in the greenhouse. And that was the best year we ever had. So I think it's just determined if I want to do spring planting for these cold crops, I got to do it in the greenhouse. And I got to do it a lot earlier than I would if I had to plant outside. The cabbage is still looking good. I keep coming in here. That head's getting pretty big. I think it's probably about time to call it, just because I don't want them to get ate alive. So I might just have to take the size that they are, just so the bugs don't eat them completely up, like this one. I think I just put an ADHD on there. I was trying to tell you about what we was going to do in this bed and that bed, and I got talking about co-crops. So what we're going to do, and it's one of the bigger things that I wanted to talk to you about today, is it is early June, but we're about a week in, June 8th, June 9th, something like that. We still, if you're in 6B, well, I don't even know. We're not 6B anymore, whatever zone we are. If you're in southeastern Kentucky or anywhere in that vicinity, we still have a full growing season for basically everything. There's nothing really that we would say don't plant right now. There's just stuff that's going to be pushing it closer to the colder weather, so you need to watch that. So, for example, starting peppers from seed, probably wouldn't do it even though there's enough time for them to grow, because they need that nice hot. And by the time we're getting close to the end of that season, y'all know our weather can get a little chilly and start hindering with that frost date, but that's not going to make your peppers grow great. So you're wanting to find stuff that's got about, I would say you could go all the way up to 75 days maturity. And if you look at the back at your seed packets, they should tell you the maturity date. And that just means from seed to when they have fruit on them. That's what the maturing process is. So we're probably going to put some zucchini and squash in here, just because squash bugs will probably catch those. And so we're succession planting by putting some over in here into that bed. That way we can have them for a little bit longer. And then we'll probably put some cucumbers in this one. And to be honest with you, what we might do, I'll get creative on how I want to let them grow up, because I don't just want them to grow on the dirt. But I might get them over here to this fence line, because we have that welded wire that you can see there, and just let them kind of attach onto the fence line. But both those zucchini, squash, and cucumbers, they have such a quick turnaround that direct sowing them, we have plenty of time. There's going to be absolutely so much time to be able to do that. And we'll also do that in something different in the cabbage bed, but plants like that, and then also the onion bed. So as soon as we harvest those, they will not sit dry for too long. We will plant something else. I will say, though, the only other thing to take into account here is if you are planning on planting fall cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, co-crops, kohlrabi, stuff like that, we're going to be starting those in our area mid to late July. So we'll probably start them from seed inside, getting them growing out, or we'll set them out here somewhere to grow or get them started, because then that'll give us a nice October, November harvest. So you might not put something in a bed that you pull out, but it'll only be blank for about a month or so, because then it'll be ready for the co-crop. So keep that in mind too, if you want to have space for fall crops. All right, moving on over here to these tomatoes. So we just got these trimmed up and tied up yesterday. And I'm not hating this contraption I did with the 2 shepherd hooks and then just running hay twine back and forth. It seems to be holding pretty good. And so I'm pretty excited about it. But they are all looking healthy. These are the ones, y'all, that got completely destroyed by that hailstorm we have. And you can even see their stems, how beaten and bruised they are. But look how healthy those tomato plants look. Don't they look great? And again, with them, you can see down here in the bottom, no leaves touching the ground, cut them all off. And then I love our 2 little marigolds here. They're growing just real nicely beside them. They got all kinds of buds on them. They'll be blooming soon. Here's our little bitty pepper bed that we have. This is a mix of all kinds of different peppers, but I did see right before shooting that this guy, yeah, look at there, it looks like a little jalapeno we got going on there. Could also be a banana pepper. We don't know. We'll wait and see until it comes out. But we already got some fruit growing on there. That's really exciting. And like I said, we don't really preserve a whole lot of peppers. We don't make hot sauce or stuff like that. We just really eat them fresh. The flower bed is growing. So I actually just cut all the zinnias and everything off yesterday because I made a little bouquet for Raylan and Jen to have. And we've already still got some sprouting back. We got some calendula sprouting. We got some marigold sprouting. But the one that's still in the shell right now that's kind of hiding itself at the moment are these hollyhocks. Look at that beautiful pink. Isn't that pretty? And you can just see all the buds going up this stem. We're gonna have really pretty plants. We got 2 of them here. And I'm loving how this bed's forming. All the plants look so healthy, so good. And soon it is just gonna be a bed of color. All right, and then moving on to these green stalks. These things are doing good. I'm seeing a little light colored on a lot of our stuff, which usually means too much water. We've definitely gotten a lot of rain, but I would like to see them start healing a little bit more. I don't feel like we're getting extreme growth from too many of them. But like these bush beans are looking good. They even got little bitty beans on them. I think see on the peppers, there was a pepper somewhere that had one starting to grow. But you know, overall it's doing great. We got our Mexican sunflowers down here at the bottom. And then the flower and herb bed is probably, I would say, doing a lot better, but the herbs look great. We've got a lot of flowers that are popping. It's a mix of all kinds of different ones. You know, we got all kinds of pretty colors that are going on. And it just looks good being right here in the front of the house with the 2 ferns in the background. It looks nice. Somebody asked how they do with these storms, and they're absolutely fantastic. I will say, though, if they're good and watered, that makes them so much heavier and makes them more durable for the wind. But we've had crazy winds here, and they've never went down. I forgot to show this stunner. Pretty excited about this Mexican sunflower. It is doing so good in this corner. It is by far the biggest one out of any of them. And I did want to say, because I've grown a lot of Mexican sunflowers, and I've noticed they do like some shade. So that one right there, right beside it, that's why I'm pointing at it. It gets really good morning sun, but it almost gets no afternoon sun whatsoever because the porch is blocking that. So keep that in mind. If you're growing them, they do like to be a little shady and they get really big. So that is the garden and all of its drama today. But I really wanted to just kind of catch up with you all. I'll tell you about what the kids have been doing. It's been so great to see them play and have fun. They've got camps and all kinds of stuff that they got coming on for the rest of the summer. We're just really taking it back to old-fashioned summer. We're trying to treat it like it was us growing up in the 90s, and just being very involved, doing things, staying busy, and just not taking life too serious because we've been doing that way too much. And Jen and I just decided we don't do that anymore. We don't want to be taking ourselves too serious, life too serious, anything like that. We just want to enjoy what we're doing, slow down. Like we've said, we still don't say the word hurry, and just embrace every moment of our life and take it without concern, without care, and just enjoy the ride. And I'll basically just leave you with this. Quit striving for perfect. Sometimes good is good enough. Y'all, we love you. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget about the Father's Day sale. That's absolutely a great deal. It's a huge discount getting this stuff for your fathers, and that'll run through Father's Day. So that it's at thestivershomestead.com. Y'all, love you, and until the next one, bye.